At some point in your life, you're going to run into someone who just doesn't play fair. It might happen at work. It might happen in a business deal. It might even happen with someone you've known for years, a friend, a colleague, someone you trusted. And the thing is, it rarely announces itself. It doesn't start with a big confrontation or an obvious betrayal. It starts quietly. It starts small. And if you're not paying attention, you might not even notice it's happening until it's already been going on for a while. Maybe someone on your team keeps presenting your ideas in meetings like they thought of them. They don't give you credit. They just absorb what you share and put their name on it. And at first you think, okay, maybe they just forgot to mention me. Maybe it was an accident. So you let it go. But then it happens again. Or maybe you start hearing things. Someone says something offhand. Oh, I heard you've been struggling with that project. And you think, where did they hear that? Because you haven't told anyone that. Or someone in a position above you starts treating you a little differently, a little cooler. And you can't figure out why, until someone eventually lets it slip that a certain person has been saying certain things. Or maybe it's even more subtle than that. Maybe someone just keeps blocking your progress in quiet ways. They forget to loop you in on important conversations. They conveniently leave your name off of things. They're never outright rude, they're always perfectly pleasant to your face, but somehow, consistently, things don't work out when they're involved. You notice it. You sit with it for a while. You tell yourself you're probably overthinking it. But then you stop being able to ignore it. And you realize this person is operating differently than you are. They're playing a different game. And you've been playing your game while they've been playing theirs. Now, centuries ago, a man named Niccolo Machiavelli was thinking deeply about exactly this kind of situation. Machiavelli was a Florentine diplomat and political thinker who lived in Italy during the late 1400s and early 1500s. He worked in government. He watched powerful people operate up close. He saw alliances form and fall apart. He saw people get outmaneuvered. He saw leaders rise and get torn down. And eventually, he wrote all of it down in a book called The Prince, a guide to political power, survival, and strategy. Now, the prince has a complicated reputation. A lot of people hear his name and assume the worst. They assume he was just teaching people to be cold, calculating, and cruel. And honestly, some of what he wrote is pretty blunt. He didn't sugarcoat things. But when you actually sit with his ideas, you realize something. He wasn't telling people how to be villains. He was describing how the world actually works. Not how we wish it worked, but how it actually operates when real people, real ambitions, and real self-interest are involved. And one of the core things he came back to over and over again was this. The biggest mistake that good, honest, well-intentioned people make is assuming that everyone around them is operating with the same honesty and good intentions that they are. That assumption is dangerous. Because the moment you take it for granted that everyone around you is being straight with you, that's the moment someone who isn't being straight with you has an advantage. So what do you do when you find yourself in that situation? What do you do when someone is quietly working against you and you know it? Here's what Machiavelli would say. Number 1, stay calm and pay attention. The very first thing most people want to do when they figure out someone is messing with them is react. And that impulse makes complete sense. You feel angry. You feel like you've been disrespected. You feel like you need to do something right now, call them out, confront them, make it clear that you know what they're doing. But here's the problem with that. When you react immediately, when you fire off the angry message, or you confront them in front of other people, or you start talking about them the same way they've been talking about you, you tip your hand. You show them that their strategy is working. You show them exactly what they've hit, how deep it goes, and how much it affects you. And that is valuable information for someone who's trying to get the better of you. Machiavelli was deeply cautious about emotional reactions. He believed that composure was a form of power, not because feelings don't matter, but because the person who can manage their reaction in a tense situation is the person who stays in control. So the move, as hard as it is to slow down. When you feel that urge to react, pause. Take a breath. Don't do anything yet. And instead of reacting, start paying attention. Watch what they do. Not just the big, obvious things, the small things too. Who do they spend time talking to? What do they say when you come up in conversation? What situations seem to prompt their behavior? Is it when you get recognized for something? When you're given a new opportunity? When you're included in something they feel like they should have been included in? Start noticing patterns. Keep track of them. Write them down if you need to. Think of this as the information gathering phase. Because right now you're dealing with something you don't fully understand yet. And the more you understand about what's actually happening, who's involved, and what's driving it, the better position you're going to be in when you do decide to act. Calm isn't weakness here. Calm is strategy. 2. Understand what they're actually after. People don't generally go out of their way to undermine someone for no reason. There's almost always something behind it. And one of the most useful things Machiavelli emphasized was this idea that you can't just look at someone's actions in isolation. You have to understand the motivation underneath the action, because the motivation tells you much more than the action does on its own. So think about it. Why would someone be working against you? Maybe they feel threatened. Maybe you're progressing faster than they expected or faster than they'd like. Maybe you're getting opportunities they think they deserved. Maybe your presence makes them feel less secure in their own position, and they're reacting to that insecurity by trying to slow you down or make you look bad. Maybe it's about status. Maybe they care deeply about how they're perceived by certain people, and for whatever reason, they've decided that your success comes at the cost of their status, so they work to chip away at yours. Maybe it's a scarcity mindset. Some people genuinely believe there's only so much success or recognition to go around, and that if you get more, they get less. It's not rational, but it's a surprisingly common way of thinking. Or maybe it's something more personal, a past conflict, a perceived slight, something you did or said that you may not even remember, but that they've been carrying around. None of this is to say that their behavior is justified. It isn't. But understanding what's behind it is incredibly useful. Because once you understand what someone actually wants, what they feel threatened by, what they're trying to protect, what they're trying to get, their behavior becomes predictable. And when you can predict what someone is going to do next, you stop being reactive and start being strategic. You're no longer just responding to what's happening. You're thinking ahead of it. 3. Don't get dragged into every small battle. When someone is consistently taking shots at you, even small, quiet ones, there's a natural pull to respond to every single one. Every time they undercut you, you want to push back. Every time they say something about you, you want to correct the record. Every time they make a move, you want to counter it. And on some level, that feels right. It feels like standing up for yourself. But Machiavelli saw a real problem with this approach. If you engage with every small thing, every little provocation, every minor slight, 2 things happen that work against you. First, you exhaust yourself. Constantly fighting on every front drains your energy, your focus, and your time. And all of that energy is energy you're not putting into your actual work, your actual goals, the things that actually matter to your progress. Second, and this is the one that catches people off guard, when you're constantly defending yourself, constantly in conflict, constantly responding, you start to look like the unstable one, even if you're completely in the right. Think about it from the outside. If someone's watching 2 people in a workplace conflict, and one person seems focused on their work, and the other one keeps raising issues and getting defensive, it's not always obvious who started it. And the person who appears calmer, steadier, more professional, that person tends to come across better, even if the other person is the one who actually started it. Machiavelli believed in being strategic about what you respond to. Let the small stuff go. Let some things slide without any visible reaction. Sometimes not reacting is the most powerful thing you can do. It signals that you're not rattled. It signals that you're above it. And over time, as people observe both of you, they start drawing their own conclusions, usually that the person who keeps stirring things up is the one with the problem. Pick your battles carefully. Not every fight is worth having.
4. Protect your reputation consistently. This one is big, and it's something Machiavelli came back to repeatedly in The Prince. Reputation, he argued, is one of the most valuable things a person can have. It's a form of protection. It shapes how people respond to you before they've even had a conversation with you. It determines who gives you the benefit of the doubt and who doesn't. And when someone is actively trying to damage yours, spreading doubts about your competence, your character, your reliability, your first instinct might be to launch into full defensive mode, to go around explaining yourself, disputing what they're saying, trying to convince people that it isn't true. But here's the thing. Most people don't make up their minds about you based on what someone else says. They make up their minds based on what they personally observe. So if you're consistently showing up, doing solid work, treating people with respect, staying professional when things get tense, that's the thing people are actually registering. That's what forms the lasting impression. What someone else says about you behind closed doors, even if it gets back to people, is usually measured against what people already know from first-hand experience. And if your first-hand track record is strong, it tends to hold up. So the most reliable way to protect your reputation isn't to defend it directly. It's to build it so consistently and so solidly that it's hard to knock over. Stay steady. Do the work. Be the same person in difficult moments that you are in good ones. Don't let the conflict change how you show up, because that consistency, over time, does more for you than any argument or defense could. 5. Build relationships in more than one direction. Here's something that catches a lot of people off guard when they find themselves in a difficult situation at work or in a professional environment. They realize that almost all of their support, almost all of their protection is concentrated in one place. One manager who likes them, one ally in the room, one person who has their back. And that's a really vulnerable position to be in. Machiavelli was very clear about this. He wrote about the danger of depending too heavily on a single supporter, a single patron, a single source of protection. Because if that one person changes their mind, or leaves, or gets pressured by someone else, your entire position can collapse overnight. The stronger approach is to build relationships more broadly. Be genuinely helpful to people at different levels and in different areas. Show up as someone who's reliable, thoughtful, and easy to work with across the board, not just with the people directly above you, and not just with the people you like the most. When you're respected across multiple circles, you become much harder to isolate. Even if someone is actively trying to turn people against you, they can't work every angle at once. And the relationships you've built with other people will often hold simply because those people have had enough positive experiences with you that they're not easily convinced otherwise. Your network becomes a form of stability, and stability in an unstable situation is incredibly valuable.
6. Be patient. Let things reveal themselves. Here's a truth about people who manipulate others or operate dishonestly. It's hard to keep up indefinitely. Think about what it actually takes to maintain deception over a long period of time. You have to remember what you told different people. You have to keep your story consistent across multiple conversations. You have to manage how you appear to everyone at once. You have to make sure nothing contradicts anything else. That's genuinely difficult to sustain, and the longer it goes on, the more likely something is to slip. A story doesn't quite match up. Two people compare notes and realize they were told different things. Someone catches a moment that doesn't fit the image the person has been carefully maintaining. Something that was said gets repeated in a slightly different context, and suddenly it doesn't look the way it was supposed to look. Machiavelli understood that patience, real strategic patience, is one of the most powerful tools available to someone in a conflict. Because if you stay steady and you don't force the situation, you give things time to unfold on their own. You don't have to be the one who exposes them. You don't have to build a case and present it and convince everyone. A lot of the time, if you just hold your ground and stay consistent, the other person ends up doing the work for you. This isn't passive. This is strategic. It's recognizing that sometimes the smartest thing you can do is simply not get in the way of someone else's mistakes. 7. When you do respond, time it right. Now, patience is valuable, but there is a limit to it. There are situations where staying quiet stops being the right move, and you actually need to say something or take clear action. But even then, Machiavelli would say, timing matters more than people think. If you respond too early, before the situation is clear, before anyone else has had a chance to see what's happening, it can easily look like an overreaction, like you're starting conflict, not responding to it. If you wait too long, well past the point where the situation has become a real problem, it can look like you either didn't notice or didn't have the confidence to address it. The strongest moment to respond, more often than not, is when the situation has already become visible to others, when other people have started to notice the pattern you've been seeing, when it's no longer just your word against theirs. At that point, a calm, measured, direct response carries real weight. You're not emotional, you're not scrambling, you're not trying to convince anyone of anything they haven't already started to see. You're just speaking plainly to something that's already becoming obvious. That's a very different position than trying to convince people of something they haven't witnessed firsthand, and it tends to land very differently. Wait for the right moment. When it comes, you'll know. 8. Keep your focus on what actually matters. This last point is probably the most practical one, and in some ways, the hardest to actually do. Here's a tactic that some people use when they want to throw someone off. They create conflict. Not necessarily to win the conflict, just to get you distracted. To get your attention off your work and onto them. Because if you're spending your mental energy thinking about what they said, planning your next move against them, worrying about what other people think, running the situation over and over in your head, then you're not spending that energy on the things you were actually trying to build. And that, in some cases, is exactly what they wanted. Machiavelli was very clear that personal conflicts should never become more important to you than your larger objectives. The moment a conflict starts consuming more of your attention than your actual goals, something has gone wrong. So one of the most useful things you can do when you find yourself in a situation like this is regularly pull yourself back to the big picture. Ask yourself, what am I actually trying to accomplish here? What was I working toward before this started? What would my progress look like if I stayed focused on that instead of getting caught up in this? Keep that front and center. Because here's the reality. Continued progress, staying on track, continuing to produce good work, continuing to move forward is often the best possible response you can give to someone who's trying to hold you back. Not because it's dramatic or satisfying in the moment, but because it works. And because 5 years from now, what will matter is what you built, not whether you won an argument with someone who was trying to undermine you. Closing. Machiavelli gets misread a lot. People hear his name and they picture someone cold and ruthless, teaching people how to manipulate their way to the top. And yeah, some of what he wrote is blunt. He didn't wrap things in feel-good language. But if you actually spend time with the prince, what you find is someone who was simply trying to describe the world as it actually is. Not everyone is going to be honest with you. Not everyone is going to cheer for your success. Some people, for reasons that have more to do with their own insecurities and ambitions than anything you've done, are going to try to work against you. Quietly, indirectly, in ways that can be hard to call out directly. And knowing that, really accepting that as a feature of human nature rather than an exception to it, changes how you move through the world. It doesn't mean you become cynical. It doesn't mean you stop trusting people or assume everyone has bad intentions. It means you stay alert, you pay attention, you don't take things at face value when the evidence is telling you otherwise. And when you do find yourself in a situation like this, you handle it with composure and strategy instead of emotion and impulse. You don't have to become someone you're not. You don't have to be ruthless. You don't have to play dirty back. You just have to be aware. You have to be patient, and you have to stay focused on where you're actually going. Because when you do all of that, when you stay steady while someone else is trying to destabilize you, you're already ahead. And most of the time, that's enough. If you found this video useful, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That's really it. No pressure, no hard sell. If the ideas in this video were worth your time, if something in here gave you a different way of thinking about a situation you're dealing with, or just made you think a little differently about how people and power actually work, then there's probably more on this channel that you'd find useful too. That's what this channel is about. Taking ideas from history, philosophy, and strategy, thinkers like Machiavelli, people who spent their lives studying human behavior, and breaking them down in a way that's actually practical, stuff you can apply to real situations, not abstract theory. So if that's something you want more of, the subscribe button is right there. Hit it, and the next time something goes up, you'll see it. And if you've got something specific you want covered, a situation you're thinking through, a topic you want broken down, drop it in the comments. Those suggestions actually shape what gets made next. Either way, thanks for watching the whole thing. That means something. We'll see you in the next one.